So in this session, we'll be focusing more, say, on the mobile piece, as well as what could come into play when we talk about, say, kiosks, and as well as in the store piece, because in reality, most of these things happen at the store. At least a good percentage of them do, definitely not all. So in this case, we'll be talking about kind of those areas of this overall vision. And then the session towards the end of today will focus more on the web or on the e-commerce portion. So Microsoft development teams are all scenario focused. So it's scenario focused engineering. In the days where you would kind of get a customer requirement and then dream up a feature to solve that, is kind of, those days are over, and that everything now is more scenario focused. So you meet with customers, you get their pain points, you find out what they need, and then you basically write narratives or scenarios that the features then come out of. And it's basically more or less Microsoft-wide initiative, and that's definitely been the case on our product team as well. So you'll hear us talking about scenarios more so than features. And in this case, the scenario work that we've done identified these 5 top-level areas that we want to address from mobility scenarios. And actually, let me just throw out there that there's actually a big section that's missing from this, and that's because I don't really have anything to show you of this today. But that's what we call the C2-facing mobile experience. So C1 would be our first customer, and C2 would be our customer's customer. Probably the better terminology for that would be the retailer and the consumer, or the customer. So there's actually a whole line of scenarios that all focus on the consumer rather than the retailer. But what I'm here to show you today is more on the retailer side. So these are solutions for the retailer, which basically puts them within the store systems. Obviously, a consumer-facing app or a consumer-facing client isn't necessarily in the store, or maybe it is in the store. There's lots of interesting scenarios that can happen there, and we definitely will be moving that way in the future. But today's focus is all on that C1 or on the retailer scenarios that we have. So the very first one is basically just it's a point of sale system. No matter how you look at it, it's another register or it's another terminal, and so therefore it needs to be able to process sales transactions. So when we talk about our mobility solutions, whether it's on the phone or on a tablet, potentially in some kind of a kiosk environment, the fact that it's point of sale is always going to be at the core. So we'll typically, especially in the Surface app that Michael showed this morning and I'm going to show again, we'll call that the clienteling app, because the way that we envision that is it's more the sales rep out on the sales floor with the consumer, working with them, and so we call that assisted sale or clienteling app. And that app lends itself better to that kind of environment, but it's still point of sale at the heart. So you'll still be able to complete a sales transaction. It may not be its primary focus, and so therefore, you may be able to move through a big line of customers quicker, say on a different device or in a different app, but the whole idea is to sell. And so line busting, completing point of sale transactions is a scenario that you'll see across all of the different form factors that we're talking about. Again, whether that's Windows Phone, whether it's a WinRT app for, say, a Surface or for a Slate, or other form factors that we're also looking to invest in. Assisted sales is basically the rich clienteling. So Mike, I think Michael said something about leveling the playing field for the associate in the store. So you go shopping at home in your browser, and you have so much rich information available to you. You can do product comparisons. You can view all the detailed specifications. You can do pricing comparisons. All that information. The minute you walk into a store, you lose a lot of that information. And then the cashier also, the salesperson, oftentimes doesn't have that information. And in the past, it's always been in training them and getting them up to speed on product knowledge, so that they can therefore help the consumer make the right choices. And if you go to many of the big box retailers like Best Buy, Home Depot, that's few and far between, that you can actually find someone that has the product information to be able to help you find what you need. And so giving them that information in a very easily consumable way that they can then use that with the consumer definitely provides a better experience for everybody. And so with that anyway, we tend to target that towards the slightly larger form factor of a slate, whereas the phone might be the better kind of line-busting form factor. But again, you'll see elements of all of them across all of the form factors. Inventory management has probably been the area that retailers have been in mobile for the longest. Mobile point of sale, clienteling apps is something it's definitely been around for a while, but hasn't had so much traction until recent technology advances and different devices coming into the marketplace and the prices of those devices coming down. Certain retailers being very successful with these types of devices and applications is opening the eyes of everyone else, and now that's going to come on faster than you can possibly imagine. But inventory management on devices has been around in retail forever. I mean, even going back to just handheld data collectors, hardly any user interface on it whatsoever. That's something that retailers are very used to. They've already adopted, and that certainly doesn't go away. However, with these new devices and this new technology, we can make that a richer experience also. So certainly within the store, they always need to be able to pick and receive, potentially transferring orders out. Physical inventory, stock counts, cycle counts. What better device to do that on than a mobile device? Daily operations. So we do tend to focus more on the cashier or the sales associate, on selling and on assisted sales. But the manager and the supervisors within the store are very important personas to us also, and so therefore the scenarios that appeal to them are important to us as well. And so other store operations, kind of daily operations, we're also targeting for these devices. So why not be able to basically start your shift or end your shift on a device, or do drops or payouts, or punch in and out. Basically, all of the other kind of daily operations that happen, if you should be able to do that on a device as well, more so than only being able to do that, say, in your traditional point-of-sale system, or in maybe some back-office system. And then being able to surface all of this information that we have, again, in a very easily consumable, rich way, from a metrics and KPIs perspective too, for the store manager. So our point of sale systems have always done a really good job at collecting information, but actually making that useful to those in the store, it's something we really haven't done a good job at, in my opinion. So in RMS, there's some basic reports that are available to the people in the front of the house, and then some reports that are available in the back of the house. But why not right out on the sales floor, being able to quickly see if you're going to meet your sales goal for that day, or if you need to call in more people or send people home because your labor costs are too high. Or if a promotion that you've put on is effective or not. So again, bringing that information into the mobile devices, out onto the sales floor, that the managers that they can have access to. So those are the scenarios that we're targeting, at least in our first round of applications on various platforms. We'll obviously continue to build on that. So concepts and architecture. There's the slide that I showed earlier, where we show all of our different components, and we showed HQ was over on the left, and then we had Commerce Data Exchange in the middle, moving the data back and forth, and we had our clients over on the right-hand side. And basically, in most cases, those clients have been the traditional point-of-sale system, and now the e-commerce solution built on SharePoint. Another one that is that's currently in the works is Retail Server. So what this allows us to do is to now support thinner clients. So if you think about our traditional point of sale, it's a .NET application. It's a very rich application. It requires the pro version of Windows, basically, if you're up on the new terminology. From an architecture perspective, it requires a SQL database, and for offline capabilities, it requires that SQL database to be local in almost all cases. And we have retailers that certainly understand the robustness of that and the need for that, and that's good. I don't see that going away anytime soon. But we also have retailers coming to us saying that they want to have thinner clients and smaller footprints in the store. So retail server is something that will allow us to get there, and it's also the backbone to all of the devices that we're talking about now. So when we talk about the phone and we talk about the Surface RT, these are really thin clients. There's not a whole lot going on in the client itself. It's more just a presentation layer. Retail server is what's actually doing that work there. So the design goals for retail server, when we're first thinking about, we identify the scenarios that we want to solve, and then we figure out how to solve them. And retail server was that solution. But basically, it needs to be able to deliver the next generation retail experience. So different scenarios that you can get into, different form factors, different platforms, is really what the next generation retail experience is about from our perspective. To me, this is an extremely important one, and it's always been important to us. And every decision that we make in our designs, we always try to keep this first and foremost, and we try to address this issue. Is that basically, if you're using different systems from different pieces from different solutions as your overall, then you've got integration points that are happening here and there, and you basically now have different systems that are all pieced together. Our strength and where we will continue to move forward on is to eliminate that problem by having consistent set of business rules regardless of where you are. And so we've done that in this latest release between the store and the e-commerce site. So basically, those CRT boxes that I showed you before, and I have another slide to talk to that again, are those business rules, and we now have those same business rules whether you're in the brick and mortar point of sale or whether you're in the e-commerce site. So obviously we take those same business rules, and that goes into retail server now as well. So if you're doing price calculation or tax calculation, or even data access, getting into our database through these servers, it's one method regardless of what's on the other side of that. And we feel that that's a very key strong point of the solution. Also, Michael's talked about this. I mentioned this before. We want to be the end-to-end solution from all aspects for retailers, but we know that can't always be the case. Either they just don't go into that area, and so they don't need that functionality, or they've just invested in another system and they're not about to take that system out. So we always want to be end-to-end. We'll continue to go deeper into all of the areas that we're in, and to go broader as well. But we also need to be able to do just specific workloads also. So if you already have your say traditional point of sale system in your store, but now you want to add mobility, you should be able to do that. Now, obviously, anytime you do that, we talk about those integration points that we talked about before, but we still want to be in those situations. Our e-commerce, but your point of sale, or vice versa. Any of those different combinations, or whether it's from an ERP or from a GL perspective, we should be able to work in any of those situations. But our strength is always in our end-to-end. Scaling up and down. So most people always talk about scaling up and out, but scaling down is also a reality, and that especially in seasonal businesses. So we know that spinning up a new server to reach your peak time is very expensive, and then if it's basically sitting idle for 10 months out of the year, then that's a wasted investment, especially since that server could be outdated in a couple of years. So this is something that we're also looking at with retail servers, the ability to scale up and down seamlessly, but with rich capabilities and keeping the total cost of ownership down. Empower both employees and customers is the point I talked to earlier. Everything I'm focusing on really here is around the employees or the retailers, but that does not mean that we're not focused on the consumer apps as well. So whether we call it C2 or consumer app, but that's definitely in our cards, and that definitely retail server comes into play there as well. The consumerization of retail is probably something that you've heard before as well. But the phone that Michael showed earlier, this is a Lumia 900 phone. And this is the one that they're actually using in the Microsoft stores. Now, they worked with Verifone and had a custom sled built for this phone, but it's just a consumer device. So that's actually, it's very popular in other industries, and it makes sense in retail to some degree also. But everyone's already got a smartphone. Why not use your own phone rather than having to provide a company-based phone? So whether that actually catches on immediately or not, or to what degree that catches on in retail, That's something that we're definitely keep an eye out for, and that's something that we keep in mind as we do our designing. But that this is basically just it's a consumer device with a sled on it. Now that's not always the best solution, and we've been working with, I know Motorola has kind of a purpose-built device that they were showing at NRF with an early version of the embedded version of Windows Phone. So, kind of the line of business or the purpose-built devices are definitely something that's coming. And so now you have the choice, kind of lower cost consumer device or, retail hardened line of business purpose-built device. Those are coming as well. And finally, I probably can't say this enough either, which is basically all of it being centrally managed within Dynamics for Retail. So that's, if we go back to that slide that we've shown over and over, the big piece at the bottom is it's always Dynamics for Retail in the back end, and it's driving all of these channels. So whether it's product information or product enrichment, or whether it's store configuration information or sales tax configuration, the idea is that that's always centrally managed. It's all within one system. It's omni-channel, regardless of what's on the other side of those. So I think I showed this slide maybe once before too. This is just kind of a visual way to talk about what I was just saying. So with AX for Retail or Dynamics for Retail, the gray bar at the bottom is the back office. The middle piece is Commerce Data Exchange. And then again, whatever is on the other side. So in our case, we've got our point of sale out of box, we've got our e-commerce out of box, and now we're working with Retail Server for devices. But Retail Server is important because now that opens it up to just about anything else on that other side. The very key part, though, is that regardless of what's on the other side, it's the same piece in the middle moving the data, and it's the same piece on the back end managing it. I showed this slide before too. We can move through this pretty quickly. This again is just kind of bringing in other elements to show the overall stack. Azure is another interesting point here. So when we talk about Retail Server and where it's hosted, Azure definitely is something to be considered there. And actually, since I've already shown this one, I'll get on into a slightly scary slide. So this gets a little bit more on the technical side, but it doesn't really need to be. And it's a little bit of an eye chart, even for me up here. But basically what this is it kind of shows a bit of the inner workings of the overall design of Retail Server. And when we talk about flexible deployments, we know that retailers will deploy Retail Server on-premise. We also know that retailers will not do that. They'll host it in their own data centers, or potentially some private cloud or Azure or somewhere else that can be hosted. As far as our client's concerned, we don't care, right? As long as we have connectivity, as long as we have an IP address, we'll be able to talk to that. Now, if it's within a private network and it's a retailer-specific application, the C1 application, that's something that we've definitely considered and we're designing for, or whether it's external facing. So whether it's a public IP address so that so consumer-facing apps can get in through Retail Server. In the upper left-hand side is basically the point of sale. So it does say vNext point of sale there, and what that actually means is that if you look at our kind of out-of-the-box traditional or enterprise point of sale or the Win32 app, the one that I showed earlier, the CRT is kind of really embedded within that. It's all of the various business rules that are, some of them within the kernel, some of them within the plugins that we have. It's all part of the application. You can't really extract that out. It's the same business rules, but they're part of that application. So when we talk vNext, we talk about the being able to pull that portion out and use the exact same instance of CRT as elsewhere. So that piece is coming, and that's reflected by that box in the upper left-hand corner. The box in the middle is the Retail Server itself, and if you think of it as basically it's just a set of web services with APIs, so that whatever that device is calling in basically has a known set of APIs to be able to initiate workflows, to be able to request data or to send data back in through the system and into the store database. So this is an example of the Retail Server being deployed in a store. And in this case, it's actually using, say, the rich point of sale as well as a mobile point of sale. And in this case, they're both going through the retail server. Retail server can also be hosted, say, in the cloud, private cloud, or basically however that is going to be hosted. But when I use this, I basically just mean not in premises. And here it actually shows kind of the scaling capabilities. That might be really hard to read. The important pieces here is actually, everything else is the same as you saw on the one before, only there's multiple. And in this case, we've split out and we have two load balancing data centers as on the left and on the right. And then within there, there's load balancing that can work across multiple instances of retail server. So now, basically, the device calls in and it finds out where it's supposed to talk to, and then it all gets routed around in the right way to make sure it's talking to the right instance. We know that this device is actually within this store, so that you're seeing the relevant information for that store. And then even within, obviously, databases can also be scaled out as well. But then in the end, it all basically comes back in through Commerce Data Exchange and into AX. So we'll get into the demos a bit, and I'm foreseeing some display issues because that's how we roll here. But the first thing I'll show is the Surface. And I know Michael touched upon it, but I'll go a little bit deeper and I can explain some of the thinking in some of the design. Let's give this a second to pick it up. Okay, so this is just a video out on the Surface. I did realize that the wire's kind of loose, so if I actually hold it up the way that I wanted to, you'll probably lose it. But you can trust me that it's actually a Surface. Although this same app will run on Windows 8 Pro as well, so it'll run as an App Store app, very much in the same way as it does on the Surface. And most of the time in the office, that's what I'm doing. I'm just running it on my regular PC. I'll go ahead and start it up. I'll have my Surface around with me too if you want to come play with it after. That's certainly fine also. I'll make a disclaimer that the Surface is 16 by 9 and this projector is 4 by 3. So stuff is getting squished a little bit. It doesn't look like that when you actually use it on the Surface. So you'll just have to forgive me there. And there's actually a couple other display issues that aren't quite right when you see it on 4 by 3. So you'll have to be a little bit forgiving there. But this is basically what Michael's calling the clienteling app. So this is where we envision the cashier or the sales associate on a Surface or some other kind of a tablet out on the sales floor helping the customers. So to do that, we basically give them the ability to get rich product information and rich customer information. And so you can kind of demo this kind of going into it a couple different ways. So in the scenario that we actually used in preparing for these demos, it was basically the consumer comes in and they've been shopping online at home. They have to make a decision between a couple different cameras, but they're going to come into the store to talk to somebody about it. So in this case, I can go into my products. This is basically your category hierarchy. So this is driven off of those same category hierarchies that I showed you this morning from within AX. So this is basically just a subset. This is the electronics node and the nodes that are underneath it. So again, this is data-driven off of AX. And you'll see the same theme when we talk about e-commerce as well. If I basically switch the category hierarchy for this company, or for this store, I would get different products here. I don't have to write any code. So you can kind of do the semantic zoom here, so I can zoom out and look at one level up. I can go into cameras and then drill down, say, into this category of digital cameras. In this case, the consumer is looking maybe between 3 different devices. So you can do multi-select and do a comparison. Now, this here is also data-driven. So when we talk about item enrichment, and we'll go into much more detail on that for the e-commerce side, we'll talk about how you can enrich your products for various channels. So enrichment for a website could be very different from enrichment for a brick-and-mortar store. Enrichment for a traditional point-of-sale system could be very different than enrichment for a phone or for a slate. So this is all things that we have in mind, and this is all things that we're designing for. So it's the same product, but how you present that is going to vary based on who you're presenting it to and the form factor that it's on. But all of this data comes from AX. It's all managed centrally. It all gets pushed out through data exchange. And in this case, it's being served up through retail server. So I've selected my products. You can see we can do product images. You can do extended descriptions. And we can do attributes or specifications. This is something I'll show in the afternoon session here as well. So here I can do a kind of a side-by-side comparison across these products here. If they choose that they want to get more information about a specific product, they can drill down into the one product. You can have multiple images. You could do videos here, or basically whatever kind of multimedia you would want for any of the products. And then you can get into maybe slightly more details. You can get into reviews. So these would be product reviews that are coming in. So there was a question about this in the morning session. Basically what we have here is support for feeds, data feeds coming in, more so than we've actually built a review system. Whether that stays that way longer term or not is basically to be determined. But for now, we have the ability to consume data from outside sources. In this case, it's customer reviews. So this is the camera that I want. I can choose to add this to the sale. That now brings you kind of into the point of sale portion of it. So here we can see that based on this line item, I can come over here and I could actually increase the quantity if I wanted to. I could get some extended information about this as well. I could also, instead of viewing the details here, I could look at related products. So this is also data-driven from data within AX. So products can have related products. So in this case, it's actually other cameras, but you could imagine it being a battery or a memory card or cables that are needed or a shoulder bag or something like that. So you can kind of upsell and cross-sell throughout. If I want to add a customer, now that the customer decided that that is the camera that they want, you add the customer to the transaction. So in this case, just going into customers. At NRF, we actually had an NFC demo. The Surface actually does not have an NFC chip in it, but we had a Samsung slate there that does. And with a phone with an NFC chip, we were able to do basically tapping. So you tap the phone to the Surface, and now we know who the customer is. The customer is automatically brought up, and then the information is available to the cashier that way. So we had that demo at NRF, basically being able to tap. So you could also search. So you can bring in the charms. You can search across, and you can search across products and customers, and eventually we'll be able to search across transactions also, but that's not in this particular build. Michael talked on kind of some of the information that we show for customers. The other idea here is that you want the associate to have rich product information, but we also have been collecting all this really valuable information about the customers as well. And to date, we haven't done a good job of making that available to people in the store. So if I'm working with this customer and I can very quickly and very easily see what their last purchases are, I can make some decisions in helping them find something else that they might like or something that might go along with it. So in this case, I can actually see what's on their wish list, and what better way to upsell them than with that information. So clearly we can improve on this and add filtering capabilities and better search capabilities there, but this is kind of the idea, is that, that through retail server and the fact that it's omni-channel, it doesn't matter where the data is coming from, it's all available everywhere. And then the idea, too, of being able to surf up, again, very visual information that an associate can use on the sales floor. These are really just examples, but purchases by month, which categories they tend to spend more in could be something very useful, and even which price points. I mean, you probably wouldn't want to suggest to somebody something that's way outside their price point. They've never, you can tell that they tend to purchase products within these price points. So from here, again, I can add the customer to the sale. So now the customer comes into the transaction, and then I can complete the sale. This is one of those little UI things that looks better actually on the actual device rather than on the 4x3. We get some clipping and some alignment issues over there. This isn't fully done, so we basically have, you can pay with credit card, or you can just do exact cash for testing purposes. But if you're paying by credit card, obviously if you have a swipe enabled, then you wouldn't have to punch in the number. Actually, I think in this I can just put in anything there. I don't think it matters. and I can get a signature, whoops, and complete that sale. And now here you can see the option to tap as well. So at NRF, with the NFC-enabled devices, we were able to actually tap and send that receipt back to the person's phone. So we wrote a wallet app for Windows Phone 8, has the wallet capabilities. So within that wallet, you can manage your identity, basically, within the store. So you can have multiple loyalty cards, maybe promotions that were sent to you, either by email or through the mobile app, or maybe even in the store by scanning a QR code or something like that, can all live within your wallet. And now, because of NFC, you can very easily transfer that information back and forth without having to swipe a card or scan a barcode or do a search or a lookup or something like that. So at NRF, we were actually able to demo the tap of the receipt going back to the consumer's phone also. But obviously, many other options here. So whether it's just send them an email, or if you have a remote printer, you could obviously print the receipt as well. So that's the Surface clienteling app. Thank you. Okay, now let's see if I might have to do some clicking over here. One quick second while I fix the screen. Almost. Okay, we're good? Okay, now I have the phone app. And so for you to be able to see this, did I just lose it? Yes, I did. Nice. Hold on. For you to be able to see this, I have a special app installed on the phone, and then I have a special app installed on the machine so that you can actually see what's happening here. So it's not an emulator. It's actually just video out on the phone, eventually, hopefully. There we go. Okay, so that's video out on the phone. So here we have our retail app on the phone, also using Retail Server. So I can actually just go ahead and log in here. So now this is the kind of the welcome screen for the employee. So just like our other point of sale has data-driven UI and either store or terminal or role-based layouts, the idea is that we want to keep that, that concept throughout. So when we talk about the tablet or the Surface app, we want to have certain elements of that that are, again, role-based. So what they can do, what they'll see, various design elements coming up from there as well. And this would be another one. So logging in as this user, I get these apps or these areas that I can go into. I can go in and view my customers. I can search for them. In this case, I know there's one of these phones that doesn't have any customers on it, and apparently I grabbed that one, which is great. You can imagine there'd be a list of customers here. Of all of the phones that I could have grabbed, I grabbed the one that doesn't have the customers. But I can go in and look at product information. Again, same idea as I start off at the top level of the category. I can drill down through the categories to narrow down my products. And then I can get in and view detailed information about that product. Again, kind of the same idea of the reviews, but on a different form factor. And I can add that item to the sale. You could go and add additional products. It has a barcode scanner on it as well, so it's probably the more efficient way of adding products on there. If you get into the sale, you can see kind of the idea of the transaction screen and being able to use the hubs concept. So this would be the sale or where the product information is. If I had a customer in here, I could be able to, this would be where the customer information would be. And then actually, in a later version of this, we have multiple payment lines capability. So you'd have a kind of a payments hub there as well if you do split tendering or multi-tendering. And then I can actually go and, that would be searching for a product. I can complete the sale. So here, if I choose to do card, I could swipe. If I choose to do cash, I can kind of do a quick amount, or I could enter the amount and complete the sale on the device. So same idea. It's using the same business rules. It's using the same data access. So any of the capabilities that you would see on the RT app that I've shown are certainly capable here. Obviously, just different form factor, so different presentation. So with that, I think we might be, I don't know, I can't see a clock, but I don't know if we have any time for any questions.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Just a couple quick questions. Yes.
Obviously, you talked about the cloud, private cloud. A lot of people are talking about it. A lot, in high transactional environments. Any comments in general about where you see point of sale moving? When you see it moving in a cloud environment?
Yeah, I definitely have my opinions and thoughts on that. I wouldn't say that I'm an expert in there to be quoted on, basically. But to me, if you look at it from a capabilities perspective and from a cost of ownership perspective, it makes perfect sense for retail to go to the cloud. Makes perfect sense. When you think of actually being in a store and having a line in front of you and being able to check people out, or in some cases not, then you can see why retailers are very hesitant there. And that's even in portions of the world where uptime is you almost never think of any downtime because the infrastructure is there. There's definitely parts of the world where that's not the case. And so it's going to be different retailers, different verticals within retail, and then different geographies that move that way faster. What I kind of see happening maybe sooner and maybe easier to swallow is kind of a hybrid approach. Is that you have maybe these devices are running off of a server somewhere because they're thin clients anyway, and that certainly makes your deployment costs and upgrade costs and even hardware costs much cheaper. But to say that you won't have any kind of rich clients, with a local database, I think that's going to be, up to each retailer. But, on the surface, it seems like, why isn't everyone already doing it? But in reality, you can see why, retailers tend to be hesitant there. I don't know. Maybe that's a non-answer. I don't know. Yes. There's two over there, so either one. Yeah, those are great questions for Michael. I can talk to you a bit about how we would deliver it, basically. So if you think of a Windows Phone app today, the only way for you to get that app is through the Windows Store, right? And so clearly that's not going to work. You're not going to go and download the Contoso Store app and have that work in your retailer's environment. So our thought is that we provide this as a package, basically, that then needs to be kind of customized for each individual retailer. And so then that can be either deployed, it can be sideloaded, depending on their infrastructure, or with Windows Phone 8 anyway, there's now a concept of kind of like a private marketplace where only company apps can be installed. But as far as GA and actual licensing costs, Michael would be the right person to ask about that.
Always give me the fun ones. So the release target, so there's a few things. This clienteling app you saw, next-gen RMS, so late 2013, so late this year. So the goal would be to get access to code, solutions, training starting roughly middle of this year for all of you, and then give you that 4 to 5 month window we've talked about before we generally release. So the goal being that by the time we're at this conference next year, this is generally available in the marketplace. In terms of licensing, there's still some things we're working through and what that look and feel. But the thinking right now is our standard point of sale is a list price of $400 device. A mobile phone is just another device that you're running the app on. So I wouldn't expect there to be dramatic differences on the on-premise license.
More the retail server aspect of it.
Yeah, and the retail server, so just like we have a device, Cal, you can buy to access the headquarters from the store today, the retail server would be that same thing. So it would allow you access to the back office headquarters. It would allow you to use the scenarios that Jeff was describing. So think of it as a store manager workstation, basically.
And then similar to sort of past releases, is there plans for a TAP program for this stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So the question was about a TAP and about pre-release. So we'll definitely do that. We'll be looking for early adopter customers. We'll be doing the TAP and beta programs the way we have. So like I said, that's what this year is going to be all about for us, is readiness for all of you, access to the solution, and then getting the customers on board so we can do all the validation.
So we're pretty much out of time for this session, but we'll be around if you want to stop up and ask questions afterwards, then that'd be great. Thank you.